So this person here says, what really happened, Tom, over the last 50 years is more taxes. I don't know why it's TAX apostrophe S. It should be ES, but whatever. That's why moms can't stay home with the kids anymore. But that's not what happened. Our taxes have actually gone down. When Ronald Reagan came into office, he slashed tax rates, which caused a massive deficit and thus added a tremendous amount to the debt. And ever since Ronald Reagan, Republican and Democratic presidents have been fucking with the taxes, but it's always been a case where our taxes keep coming down, down, down. Unless you're talking about local taxes like in your city, your state, things of that nature. And then it depends on where you live. It depends on whether or not you live in an urban area or you live in a rural area, what state you live in, as to what kind of tax base you're going to be contributing to. But from a federal level, our taxes have actually been getting lowered over the course of the past 50 years, starting with the massive cuts that Ronald Reagan put forth. But what's happened over the course of the last half century that has caused, as you say, moms not to be able to stay home with kids. These days, there are also, dads that stay home with the kids. But what's happened over the last 50 years is not more taxes per se, but more greed. More greed on everybody's part. The wage gap when my grandparents were working was not anywhere near what it is today. The wage gap grew under my parents, and then more so with me and my generation, and on to the generations that came after us, the millennials and the Gen Zers. The greed comes in the form of companies not wanting to pay as much, and thus see a wider pay gap from the CEOs and the owners to the people who do the work. At one point in time, the pay gap was here, and then it grew to here, and now it's here. We're seeing that pay gap widen, which means that we have a hoarding of wealth at the top, and we don't see the wages rising to keep up with the other greed that's out there, and that's the greed from the corporations that keep charging us more over and over and over and over again. Just look at the round of greed that we just went through, right? 2020, we had the pandemic, and everybody altered their spending habits. We couldn't go out to dinner or to a show or to a ball club or to a comedy club or go on vacation, and all of that money didn't flow into all of those industries, and we stopped going even to the grocery store as much as we did. We just pulled back on everything. Then, when we came out of the pandemic, all of those industries jacked their prices up in order to start making up for the losses that they incurred in 2020. And losses is honestly a comical term, considering that a lot of these industries had decades, some only years, but a lot of them decades, in which they were raking us over the fucking coals and making millions of dollars in profit. But 1 year they couldn't handle not making profit. But regardless, they started jacking the prices up to make up for the losses of 2020. We were so excited to come out of the pandemic that we were just buying it no matter what the price was. And then they all looked around and went, why the fuck would we ever lower the prices? They're willing to pay for it. They're buying it at the prices. Don't fucking lower the prices. And then we get Donald Trump come in with his tariffs, and we get trade wars and things of that nature. Over the last 50 years, what we've seen is greed, both in the form of employers and in the form of the corporations that make the shit that we buy. Their greed has skyrocketed, and wages haven't kept up with the price of stuff, because once again, half of that greed comes from the employers, and the working class is kind of stuck between these two greedy groups of rich people, the employers and the producers of the goods and services. It's not that we've been taxed more, it's that we can't keep up, we as a society can't keep up with the greed. And the greed is at some point in time going to bubble over and be unsustainable.